kind of about this word and fit, right? We hear this all the time, not just in college football. We hear it in the NFL. You hear it in pretty much every job or every walk of life. And I agree with Josh Pate in the fact that the term fit is such an overused and really misunderstood term. One, do you want to have somebody that understands the lay of the land as a leader in that area? Yeah, it helps. It's not going to hurt you. But it isn't the biggest decision. It isn't the main factor. I know Brian Harsin didn't work out at Auburn, but that wasn't because Brian Harsin wasn't from the South or that he didn't understand how college football works. It's that he didn't work hard enough in recruiting. It's that he didn't do the things on the outside or the dirty work that a head coach has to do in the Southeastern Conference, regardless if you're Nick Saban or you're Kirby Smart, to be able to attain a lot of success. So hearing this, Kalen DeBoer, he's not from the South. He really doesn't understand it. He's probably going to struggle. If Kalen DeBoer doesn't win at Bama, it's not because he isn't from the South. It's not because of where he was born, right? It's because he did not do something right along the way, or, to be honest with you, it's damn near impossible to fill Nick Saban's shoes. That's just the truth. But this whole, I'm from here, so I can't have success here, yeah, it's an advantage to know where you're at, right? But it's also not the biggest disadvantage in the world to be from another region of the country. So I've been seeing that. He doesn't know how to recruit. It's about the staff you put around you. The manager at Coca-Cola doesn't need to be from the same place where Coca-Cola was invented to sell it well. It's about who you put around you, the staff, the recruiters, the guys with the relationships that are already built in to make that transition a little bit easier. And then you go work your ass off and you go win. So, David, I'm going to kick it to you first. This term fit, first off, what do you kind of think about what Kalen DeBoer's done with the staff so far? We see Ryan Grubb, the offensive coordinator, coming over after Jed Fish gets the Washington job. Just kind of what are your thoughts on the staff he's putting together and this whole fit term, which, again, if that was the case, then nobody would ever coach or lead or run something outside of where they live, and we stopped doing that hundreds of years ago.
Well, the two best ways to fit in anywhere are to achieve at a high level and to be a high character member of your community. I mean, that's just proven over time. Ed Orgeron was a great fit at LSU, and he had one great undefeated season, and 2 years later he's out. Scott Frost was a great fit at Nebraska because he played there. He's not the head coach there today. So I think, Kalen DeBoer's future will depend on, is he able to achieve at a high level? And if he is, members of the Tuscaloosa community will embrace him with open arms, and he will never have to pay for ribs at Dreamland Barbecue again. Now, as far as the staff goes, when we've seen Kalen DeBoer have the most success, he's had Ryan Grubb on the staff, either as his offensive coordinator when he's been the head coach or as a position coach when Kalen DeBoer has been the OC. Well, the first big domino has fallen because he's going to bring Ryan Grubb with him to Tuscaloosa. And if you're taking over the biggest job of your career, it's nice to have a little bit of cohesion and bringing a guy that's coached with you at all of these different levels. Now, we've also seen when Kalen DeBoer has had the most success, he's had Michael Penix Jr. as his quarterback, whether it be at Indiana or whether it be at Washington. But we also saw him coach up Jake Haener at Fresno State. So look, he's had Ryan Grubb on staff, and he's had an elite quarterback who has either played on Sunday or, in Michael Penix Jr.'s case, will play on Sunday. That's why I find the most fascinating piece of this to be who's going to play quarterback. You have Jalen Milroe, who finished, sixth in the Heisman Trophy voting, and you brought in Will Rogers, second in all-time passing in the SEC, to Washington for a reason. It was a great fit for Kalen DeBoer. It was a great fit for Will Rogers. Now he's re-entered the transfer portal. Is he going to come to Tuscaloosa? Does he want to get into a quarterback battle with Jalen Milroe? When you look down the stretch, just looking at some of Jalen Milroe's stats, a little rocky early, and then the last thing in our memory is the game against Michigan. But throughout the course of the season, when he got better and better, 65.8 completion percentage through the air. He did throw for 2,800 yards and a touchdown to interception ratio of 23-6. That's without even talking about what he can do with his legs. So one way or another, I think Kalen DeBoer is going to have plenty of options when it comes to who's going to lead this offense.
Blaine, we saw T-Rob go to Georgia with Muschamp, obviously being an analyst and taking a more off the field role. We'll see how the rest of this staff shakes out, what he's going to do with Freddie Roach, right? The biggest question becomes, and we saw this with Hugh Freeze at Auburn, and then I want to ask you, Blaine, a quarterback question before we get to the chat. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. We obviously can't do live calls today, but we're going to get to the chat a ton, so I want to make sure and let y'all know that. Keep that thing cooking. If you do donate, obviously we'll read that at the top if it's relevant to the topic. But you look at Freddie Roach, people are talking about, will he be maintained or retained, however you want to put it. How much of the transition coaching staff, right? We saw this, like I said, with Hugh Freeze, where he kept Cadillac Williams and Zach Etheridge and guys that were from that place but knew the players, because you have to re-recruit your own players. It's not even about just having the high school connections. It's about trying to keep a damn roster halfway together. When the minute the head coach announces he's retiring or he leaves, you have that 30-day window where the portal opens up for guys who are eligible. We saw Isaiah Bond hop in the portal and go to Texas. I mean, Sark just picked up the bat phone and wrapped up another one for Quinn the Golden. But when you look to it at some of the DBs that have gotten in the portal, it's a huge deal. That's a whole new recruiting wing. So how much, if it was you, how many of the guys that are already there are you going to keep on the coaching staff? And then two, and to me, most importantly, that I think is going to kind of write the message of year one of Kalen DeBoer, is how malleable, if Jalen Milroe is the guy, that's assuming Will Rogers doesn't come, because I don't think he's coming if he's not going to start. If Jalen Milroe is the guy, how much more quarterback run will we see? Or maybe the better question is, how malleable overall will Kalen DeBoer be to adjust him and Ryan Grubb's system to the personnel he has with Jalen Milroe to make that offense the most efficient, kind of like we saw Tommy Rees do from the LSU game and on?
Well, if you're Kalen DeBoer, first of all, I would think it'd be a blend, right? It'd be a balance. You bring the guys you have to bring from Washington, and then you keep the guys that keep the players' chemistry intact. And this is just really puzzling to me. Did y'all watch Will Rogers at Mississippi State before he transferred? It was a disaster. The kid's arm doesn't look the same. It looks like he's gone through 3 Tommy John surgeries. We're talking about a kid coming into Alabama and immediately challenging one of the guys who finished on the Heisman watch list for a job. If you're Kalen DeBoer, even if you brought him to Washington, you don't have to bring him to Alabama. This is another thing on keeping players. All right, you just lost Isaiah Bond. If you bring in Will Rogers, all right, you are putting up the chance of Jalen Milroe hopping in the transfer portal. Then you're putting all that eggs in one basket. And I haven't seen enough from Will, especially lately, to think that he can come in and challenge Jalen Milroe, even if I want those problems. But if you're doing this, and look, and go back, and I said this a little bit, Michael Penix, what Kalen DeBoer and what they can do and malleable on offense, you see Michael Penix in some quarterback design stuff. Not a lot, but it's there. So I think he can tailor that playbook to your player strengths. With Jalen Milroe, you open it up, and it could be even better. Jalen Milroe, if they get him where he needs to be, could be top 3 Heisman watch walking in the next year.
Well, it's what would worry me too. And again, this is just, I mean, to be honest, this just sucks as like a head coach to have to worry about. What if you say, all right, hey, I do want to keep creating competition. I know that Dylan Lonergan's here, right? We know Holstein got in the portal. He's gone. Yeah. But I want to create competition here and bringing in Will Rogers, the guy I promised a shot at Washington, right? Going into his last year, which feels like 30 years of Will Rogers. But if you bring him in and Jalen Milroe does transfer or decides to transfer, not that he would, but in that scenario, I could see a bunch of guys leaving with Jalen Milroe. I feel like Jalen Milroe is one of those kind of like flag carriers for that team that a lot of guys rally around, and they feel like, well, if we have Jalen Milroe, regardless, we're going to be fine. So if he does end up transferring, I don't know how many transfers that's worth outside of himself. But when you talk about Will Rogers, and it goes back to the question I asked earlier, I don't think Will Rogers is better than Jalen Milroe when you put both of them in offenses that suit their skill set the best. As good as Will Rogers was in the air raid, I don't think he is as good as Jalen Milroe can be in a true RPO style system that is taking advantage of his legs while utilizing Jalen Milroe's arm, because he does throw good enough. But let's not act like his legs aren't a huge weapon, because Jalen Milroe, to me, at the highest efficiency, is way more dangerous. And I know Will Rogers is close to setting SEC passing records and all this stuff, and that's great. Now, he has thrown it 8,000 times coming from Mississippi State, but I would take a full-strength Jalen Milroe in an offense that behooves his skill set 10 out of 10 times against a Will Rogers who's healthy in an offense that behooves his skill set. So that would be me, but I don't know. I don't know if that's what Ryan Grubb and them want to do, David.
Yeah, no, you guys are both making great points, especially, Blaine, when you talk about how Will Rogers was last year, even before the injuries. Listen to this. We all remember the 2021 season, right, when he just broke every record you can imagine. 74% completion percentage, 4,700 yards, 36 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. That was under Mike Leach. Even the next year, 68% completion percentage, threw for 3,900 yards. Again, 35 TDs, 8 interceptions. Unfortunately, rest in peace, Mike Leach passed away. Zach Arnett, a defensive-minded coach, comes in this past season. 59% completion percentage. Okay, I won't do the yards and the touchdowns and all that because he got hurt most of the season, but the completion percentage on 237 attempts is still a good enough sample size to understand there was something going on with the shoulder. So I think that's a great point. Now, in terms of what Kalen DeBoer would want to do in a perfect world, if he went out and got the quarterback that he wanted for a system that he's been running and had success, Jalen Milroe would not be that pick, right? I think we understand that. But you're coming into a situation where you get to be the head coach at Alabama. This guy was the quarterback and has developed throughout the course of this past year and made the college football playoff. Maybe this could actually be good for Kalen DeBoer to use a quarterback who has a different skill set to be able to try some things. And I'll stand by, any coach worth their salt needs to be able to get the most out of their players and adapt their system to the skill sets of the players that they have, even if it's not a perfect world situation on who they would recruit from the jump.
I agree with you 100%.
Hey, YouTube, what's up? Thanks for stopping by. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Check us out. Roll through our videos. We drop content all the time. Turn that notification bell on as well so you can be updated when we do release it.